just take care of people. Be nice. Be transparent. If you can't get the car to them in 2 hours, say, look, we'll do our best to get in 2 hours, but it's probably going to be 3. Don't say, we'll get it to you in 2 and you get it in 3, and then they're upset. There's 2 ways to fix a bad review. Fix the problem, have them remove it, or counter it with 20 positive reviews and just bury it. And that's the reality of our world. Do things the right way. It'll never come back to haunt you. It'll make CSI easier. It'll make reviews easier. It'll make retention easier. It'll make getting new customers. It'll make referrals easier. I mean, yeah. It's a righteous circle. It just keeps growing and growing and growing if you do it the right way.
This podcast is about the people behind the marine, RV, powersports, and automotive industries. The builders, the operators, owners, and innovators most people never actually hear from. Consumers see the inventory, they see the pricing, they see the ads, but they rarely hear the real stories behind how these companies were built, the operational challenges behind the scenes, or the culture driving the industry forward. So today we're talking about the automotive side of the business. And if you've paid any attention to the car business over the last 2 decades, it's been a roller coaster. So we are sitting down with Dan Watkins, manager of corporate and community development at Principle Automotive. They operate massive stores, including one of the largest BMW dealerships in North America. And they've navigated everything from cash to clunkers to the Great Recession to COVID to the EV transition. So Dan's role sits right at the intersection of operations, community, and culture. And that's exactly where the most interesting conversations live. So we're going to talk about how the modern customer has changed the reality of managing reputation in the age of AI, and then what it actually takes to keep customers engaged when you only see them once a year. So Dan, really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, thank you for having us. We're pleased to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So Dan, you've been in this industry for 21 years. You started in sales, and within 2 years, you were navigating the Great Recession. And since then, you've seen cash for clunkers, chip shortage, COVID, and the EV push. And when you look back at that timeline, what was the single most disruptive event that permanently changed how you sell cars?
Well, they were all disruptive in their own way, but I would have to say COVID was probably the biggest disruptor that we've seen in the past 21 years, just because from the way we had to do business changed, reducing staff if needed because, customer base went away. And then to exasperate all those issues where the manufacturer shut down for 90 days. So we went 90 days without product. And then, that was right about the same time that the supply chain issues hit and the chip shortages hit. And that was all related. And it was interesting how that finely tuned machine of the automotive industry and the pipeline of vehicles, whatnot, being disrupted just was a ripple effect that we felt for years.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, COVID changed so many things for so many people. It changed people's lives. And, during COVID, you had to completely change the physical experience. So, you had to have barriers, fresh pens, appointment models. How much of that forced evolution actually ended up making the dealership better today?
Well, in hindsight being 2020, a lot of those things were probably unnecessary at the time, but we didn't know what we didn't know. So out of an abundance of caution, we had all the things. So, aside from saying, hey, we're a great experience, we have great cars, come visit us. We was like, right. We use fresh pens for every signature, and we have, PPP or PPE available, and we have, dividers between us and the guest. And, we wiped down every vehicle after a test drive, and, it was really a different world. And, we adapted, and that's basically, what makes the car business so interesting and fun is there's always something new coming up.
I mean, COVID was just definitely a time where the world changed for everyone. And a lot of companies have adapted their operations, how they operate today, just from COVID alone. So, I mean, that event definitely rocked the world and rocked everyone in terms of business, family, finances. I mean, it changed everything. So it's good to know that you guys did adjust, and, you guys are made the necessary changes in order to keep business going and running. So you guys definitely made a big adjustment there. Now, I want to go into the brands and the cultures that you guys kind of manage. So Principle Automotive operates multiple brands, and I imagine that the expectations are wildly different across all of them. I mean, a BMW customer looking for a 24-month lease has a totally different outlook on life than a Toyota Corolla buyer. So how do you maintain a consistent standard of excellence across the group when the customers want completely different things?
Well, there is some similarities across brands. People want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated transparently and so on. But you are correct. The BMW customer has a different mindset and a different want and need. Even from a Volvo customer, they're both luxury cars, but the Volvo customer is there for the safety and the future of the vehicle. But BMW is a nameplate. That's an aspirational nameplate. People want the brand. And really, even within the brands themselves, the BMW 3 Series owner is way different from the BMW X7 customer. And of course, you toss in the battery electrics and plug-in hybrids. There's really a lot of adjustment that has to be done, across the board for that specific customer. And you're right, Toyota Corolla and a BMW X5, those are totally different customers. Although, be surprised, the number of owners that come in that maybe have a BMW in their secondary car may be a Hyundai because they have a child that just turned 17. They don't want to put them in a BMW, so they put them in a Hyundai or a Toyota or a Volkswagen or whatever the case may be. So some of it is overlapping, but you are right. There's a big difference between some of those guests and really, the 21-year-old just out of college that's looking for their first vehicle is different from someone who's run a company for 15 years,
Right,
so you have to be able to adjust and just basically provide an experience that all customers, or as we call them, guests, appreciate. And that's a big differentiator, I think, in what we try to do with our guests. It's all about the experience.
I love that. I was just thinking about how some of the adjustments that you said that you make with guests, and I was just thinking, about how my dad would be totally different, have a totally different experience than I would, because the type of cars that I like compared to, what he likes. But again, you guys adjust that whole experience based off of what the customer is looking for, what type of car, what type of maybe person, different attributes they like. So I like that you guys kind of care for that and take account into things like that. So that's, I think, customer experience or guest experience in your case is very, very important. And the fact that you guys customize that, you don't see that at every, car dealership.
Well, one of the things that was really interesting when I was in sales, we had a trainer come in, and, people absorb information one of three ways, either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, which is visual, hearing, or by touching. And invariably, a couple would come in, and whether it's a husband and wife, or it's, business partners, or, a father and a daughter, whatever the case may be, the first person would say, yeah, we want to take a look at a 3 Series. And the other person will then turn and say, I want to hear about the warranty. So now you get one person who's a visual learner, one's an auditory learner. And if you don't cue into that in the sales process and you're only focused on the visual, when they leave the dealership, because you probably didn't complete the transaction because the one person who's an auditory learner said, that guy's an idiot, didn't answer any of my questions. I asked him about all these things and he didn't tell me anything. Yeah. He just wanted me to show it. And of course, the first person is like, oh my gosh, they were the best salesman ever. Did you see all the things they showed us? And so you really have to tune in, and it's kind of interesting in the examples to be like, well, sir, we got a great selection of 3 Series. You're going to love the colors and you're going to love the lines of the new 3 Series. And yes, ma'am, the warranty on this is 4 years and 50,000 miles. It covers bumper to bumper. You have an option to extend it if you decide to keep the car longer. And so you almost have to go back and forth and sell 2 different ways to 2 different people to get the result that you're looking for.
And so how do you guys help or assist with training your reps in that aspect? Because I can imagine not all sales associates can adjust to that, unless probably if you have years of experience.
Well, it's surprisingly easy because people will tell you. They provide tells. You'll see when they come in, if they're tapping the desk with their fingers, they're a touch person because they're touching things, or they're fumbling with their phone, and they'll actually say, I want to see what you have in the 3 Series, or I want to look at the 3 Series. And then of course the auditory person is saying, can you tell me about the safety features? Can you tell me about what programs you have specifically for this vehicle at this time? Is it better to lease? Is it better to purchase? So on and so forth. And it's surprising, once you hear it and you're exposed to that, it does become second nature, which is very little practice. So it's something that we try to reinforce, because it's funny. They'll be like, oh, we really thought we had a good rapport, but they went home and he didn't like the salesperson at all because they didn't get their questions answered. Yeah. And it's like, and that's why sometimes our associates will tag team. And it's better to split a deal than to have all of nothing. Yeah. So they'll tag team with another associate that will help them, whether it's a relatability issue or sometimes it's an age gap. Yeah. At our BMW store, we speak 7 languages at our BMW store, predominantly English and Spanish in our market, of course, but we have Farsi and Hindi and Chinese and Russian. I mean, it's pretty amazing, the diverse group of customers and guests that we have at our stores. So obviously, if we have somebody come in who's predominantly Spanish, we put them with a predominantly Spanish speaking associate. That just makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a mix of social cues and then also bringing in like a tag team of someone who, maybe is a little bit more experienced in the process as well.
And something else that we did 2 years ago, we're getting ready to ramp this up again. A lot of our associates, their first language is Spanish and their English is a challenge for them. And we had an associate, female salesperson, who was just absolutely the sweetest person on the planet, would never, harm a flea, but her English was abrupt because it was limited. So she would say, come sit, and people would be like, oh, she seems so nice, but she was kind of abrupt, and so we made available, optional, and the company paid for it, was a English class, Spanish to English class. And we had about 21 associates complete the training, and it improved their English to where she realized she can't say, come sit. She would say, would you have a seat, please? It's the same message, but delivered in such a way. And we saw her CSI scores go up, her review scores go up, fewer complaints about the rude salesperson. And she's the farthest thing from rude. But when you're a predominantly Spanish speaker, learning English as your second language, and you're working with a predominantly English speaking guest, there can be a clash there. And so that course was tremendously helpful, and also improved communication throughout the dealership as well, with our associates who are predominantly. So it was kind of a fun class, and they all had a graduation ceremony with cookies and punch. It was fun.
That's amazing. And I can imagine, just from an employee or a sales rep perspective, that, they really appreciated that. You guys took the time as senior management to identify gaps in your processes. And, you guys took the time and the funds to invest in them being able to learn English, and they got to graduate. That's awesome.
Well, I think it also was a big factor in retention level with associates, because, turnover is a horrible thing in the automotive industry, and we're less than 25% annual turnover, which is really, really strong. A lot of dealerships that I'm aware of, they want to get to 50%. And, we had a goal about 5 or 6 years ago of being at 25%, and our people operations department worked really hard to get to 25%. We have a few stores that are under 20. So it's pretty exciting to hear that, because then you start seeing, technicians that have been with us for 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, even predating Principle Automotive and the previous entity owned by the second generation of our family of dealerships. So pretty exciting to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Kind of going into the next point, because, we talked about tenure and we talked about how You guys really invest in your employees and sales reps. I want to talk about reputation management because I know you
Okay.
handle CSI and Google reviews for the group. You guys do a reputation review week twice a year, but the landscape is changing. Google is using AI to summarize reviews, and people are relying on AI overviews before they ever visit a store. So how is AI changing the way that you manage the dealership's reputation?
And in May, Google made a major change in their reviews to where if they see a spike in review activity, to them, that means that reviews are being coached and asked for in a certain way. And they're actually removing some of those reviews and weighing them less. But we work with reputation.com, which is a company pretty strong in the automotive space, healthcare, several other industries. And what they do for us is they help aggregate all of our review sources, not only Google, but Facebook and Car Gurus and Cars.com and Carfax and DealerRater, Yelp, all these different sources into one platform that allows us, someone like me that's looking at multiple dealerships and you have a login for each store, for each review site, them keeping track of 70, 80 logins, it makes it easy to go to one place and I can respond to all of those as needed. So, Google just in the last 12 months has seen a dip in their influence in reviews because of AI. AI is reaching out and looking at a broader spectrum of review sites, but they're also looking at Reddit and other things like that. So we're now looking to adapt to actually get on the Reddit boards and see what's going on and what people are saying about us there and trying to, manage and whether it's damage control or just put positive out there. Because, there's two ways to fix a bad review: fix the problem, have them remove it, or, counter it with 20 positive reviews and just bury it, and that's, the reality of our world. Yeah. So, we do these review weeks twice a year. Reputation has a National Lever Review Day in October, and we kind of expand it to a whole week. And we ask our associates to focus on that. And of course, we did one in April, but now if we did it again tomorrow, we would actually give our guests several different options. Do you want to leave a Facebook review? Do you want to leave a Car Gurus? Do you want to leave a DealerRater? Mm-hmm. And then we would change how we would, ask for those reviews. And, of course, the best way of all is, the simplest thing, honestly, and this is the secret sauce, just take care of people. Be nice, be transparent. If you can't get the car to them in 2 hours, say, look, we'll do our best to get in 2 hours, but it's probably going to be 3. Don't say, we'll get it to you in 2 and you get it in 3 and then they're upset. It's always the under promise, over deliver option, but just be upfront. Coming from my retail days with Best Buy, it wasn't whether the cost to repair something was too high or too low. They just wanted communication. Your vehicle hasn't been serviced yet. The technician that we had assigned it to got backed up on another issue that was discovered. We can move it to another technician, but I know you've asked for this technician. It's going to be another 2 hours. You have a loaner. Would you like us to bring the car to you? Would you like to bring the car back tomorrow? Whatever. And provide choices. And that way the guests will choose which is the best option for them. And that way you've done your job by providing information and giving choices.
Yeah. So it sounds like communication is a big factor, and then also being open and honest about what you guys can do. So instead of focusing on the options on not getting a car, saying, hey, the car is going to get here late, you guys provide other alternative options.
Correct. Yeah, that to me, it's always about the options. If we can provide options to the guests, they are going to choose the one that's best for them. Granted, if you can set it up the right way, you provide 3 options that are great for the company too. And I had a mentor that used to talk about the golden triangle. So if it was good for the customer, good for the company, and good for the associate, that was a win. If it was in there, sometimes it'll go out of balance and it's, swayed more towards the customer and the associate, and company pays a little more. But sometimes you have to step outside of that triangle to make things right. But ideally, you want to do a balance of all 3. And if you can stay in that triangle, hopefully you make everybody happy.
I like that. The golden triangle. Remember that, guys. That's something to remember. So
I didn't come up with that, but I will borrow. I will
That's okay. That's okay. We recycle things every day. So,
Our business is all about recycling. That is
yes,
true. Everything old is new again.
exactly. So, do you feel like trust is won or lost before the guest ever steps foot on the lot now?
I think more than ever, when we have our training for CSI and for reviews, we talk about, this is what the guest is seeing when they look at our sites and our different, whether it's Google My Business, Facebook, or whatever. How many of those guests look at our information and something that was in a review and they never contact us? They never submit a lead. They never look at a vehicle. We're not able to track them because they opt out of cookies, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And that's a number we just don't know. But, I've said it numerous times. What if it's only 10%? Well, would you like to, sell 15 cars instead of 13? Would you like to, have 550 hours this month on your, on your paycheck as a service advisor? Or would you rather have 490? And it's, if we don't get the opportunity, we just don't know what we don't know. So the goal is be the best that we can be at all times. And, that way we get the maximum number of swings at the bat. We get the most customers walking through the door, and we get the most guests driving up to the service drive. Yeah. I wish there was a way, put a button on the website. I was going to inquire about a vehicle, but because I saw a review, I'm not. Then we could track it. I don't think people are going to click that. I don't think people are going to click that button.
You mean like a negative review or?
No, I was kind of being facetious where it's just like, people may look at the review and they never click on your website. So we never know if they considered us. So if there was a way that we could get Google to say, I'm not going to look at this because of this review, we would know, hey, we lost 15% of our opportunities because of these reviews. We'll never know that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of lost or unknowns in regards to that. You never know.
Yeah, unknown or lost opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want to shift gears and go into retention. You brought up something fascinating before we started recording. I believe it was in our pre-interview, and you said that a dealership isn't like a Walmart. You might only see a customer once a year, and the transaction is spread out. So how do you actually keep a customer engaged so that they don't even think about going somewhere else?
Well, 20 years ago, vehicles were getting serviced every 3 months, 3,000 miles. And as synthetic oils became predominant, especially in the luxury side, that stretched out to 1 year. So we try to do things to keep guests engaged. One, social media is big on that, but we also try to do events at the dealership, whether it's a new owner's clinic, whether it's a fashion show, even things that way outside of the automotive space. Just in the next couple of months, we are doing a watch party for the USA Paraguay soccer game Friday night. We're doing a work with an organization that helps make sure the children are in the right kind of car seat and right size. And we're donating 150 car seats for those who can't afford or need an upgrade. We also do stuff with San Antonio Pets Alive, which is a no-kill shelter. So we'll have a pet adoption drive at the dealership. And just ongoing. We have an organization that's for preservation of wild habitats, especially along the Gulf Coast. And they do a photo contest every 2 years, and they have a book that they come out. We're the launch party in August for that. And so we'll have, 100, 150 people at that launch party. And it's just an opportunity. We try to get people back to the dealership to show them the things that we're doing, because you're right. We do only see them in service maybe 9 to 12 months, depending on how much they drive. And so we only have that opportunity when they're purchasing a vehicle or when they're servicing them to make the best impression, but we can have them come back for other things, whether it's free car washes, whether it's an event of some kind. We just installed 2 150-foot tall flagpoles because the highway intersection by our BMW store now has, it's 130 feet at its highest level. Wow. So we wanted the flags to be above that. So we had a flag dedication ceremony and, had people come out and, from the community, we had probably 30 police officers and firemen and some other first responders. We had some veterans there from a veterans group. We had some local dignitaries and politicians come out and all give their 2 cents. And
Yeah.
it was a great event, but, we had a lot of customers there, and that was kind of fun. And of course we, food and drink, we have snacks and orange juice and coffee and water and, stuff like that. So it's just a matter, you got to be creative and get people. I mean, you can engage on, social media. We've actually told some of our guests, well, actually all of our guests, we announce our events online. We don't send email or text messages about events. Rarely do we do that. And we definitely don't send them snail mail because that just gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So we tell them, engage with us on social media because, the USA Paraguay soccer game has all been social media. And so people have the opportunity to RSVP and set that up. And we're going to raise money for pediatric cancer. So it's kind of like a combination event. But it's just a matter of being visible and doing things in the community. And that's how we can stay engaged with those customers and retain them. Now, that's from the feel good, fluffy side of things. But we also ask that our associates in sales, they reach out to their customers. They ask those questions, even if it's just a voicemail, because, anymore you reach 1 out of 20 people you dial, or maybe it's a text message, but it's like, hey, just following up, you bought your car 60 days, want to make sure everything's still working the way you expected. Any challenges, issues? Were you able to get your garage door program with the HomeLink? Where did you get a new cell phone? Can we help you set up your Bluetooth and things like that? And then it's just an opportunity for engagement and for follow-up after the sale.
So you guys are very community oriented. And then, you have your sales associates also do personal outreach. And so it's kind of a mix of how you help to keep retention as well. And then also you're essentially turning the dealership into an event space and you're creating experiences people actually want to attend rather than a place just to buy a car.
Yeah, we want people to come back and think of it as a community space. We actually have 4 spaces at our BMW store at that campus that people can use for various things. In other words, you can see over my shoulder, the Metro San Antonio Chamber has a leadership lab that's a 9-month-long course, and we donate our training center one day in May, and they have about 60 up-and-coming leaders that are going through this 9-month training, and we feed them lunch, and they have, training from 9 to 4 with different leaders from, business and industry in San Antonio, but we offer that space for free. We have a room attached to our showroom called the Marble Room because it has really nice black shiny marble.
Oh, wow.
And that's where we're going to have the Wildlife in Focus event in August. It's kind of an elevated space. We might put an M8 or something really fun for people to drool on, but then it's a nice, attractive space. We'll have some nice music playing, and it's just a way, and anybody can use it. So Blood Cancer United uses our training center once a month for their board meetings. We have different organizations. The Bexar County Medical Society used one of our rooms for a little mingle, get together. So we do stuff like that all the time. And again, that just gets people into the store. And once people start looking at the cars, my favorite line is when someone's looking at a car and I can see the look and I go, be careful, that's how it starts. And they always laugh and they're like, who do I need to talk to if I want to ask a question about this? Let me get somebody for you. And then we get him with a client advisor, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I did go on the Facebook page and I saw that Devil Wears Prada fashion show, and I was really impressed. I don't think I've seen any other car dealership do that before.
We've actually done 3 of those shows now with that organization. Max and his team are absolutely out of this world, and they did different themes, and obviously Devil Wears Prada is huge in the fashion industry. So when the movie came out, they wanted to do something. So we put that whole event together in 4 weeks with his help, obviously. Had over 200 guests, and some were non-guests. I know personally there's been 3 car deals out of that show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the videos and stuff, I mean, it was a great night. People just went on and on and on and on. And for us, when we're talking about our community events, I always try to set up the next event from the previous event. So I had a couple of chamber members at that event, knowing that in 2 weeks, they were going to be there for the leadership lab. And then at the leadership lab, we talked about the Memorial Day event we did where we raised over $30,000 for a couple of the Wounded Warrior organizations. And then from there, we talked about the pediatric cancer in June, and we talked about the latched car seat safety program. And then we talked about, at those, we'll talk about wildlife in focus and, that event.
Yeah.
So we always try to build on the next event and make each event bigger and bigger.
Well, shout out to Max and the team,
Yes.
because everyone did a fabulous job. And so essentially,
he's a total pro. He's a total pro and just the nicest guy. And he came to us. They're actually having an award show in October that we're going to host at the BMW store. So for about 150 people, seated dinner at the BMW store. They're going to do some awards for people who were like designer of the year and stuff like that. And of course, we offer the space free of charge. So we save them thousands of dollars, and they're a nonprofit. This organization is.
How nice.
So we save them a lot of money. The San Antonio Pets Live that I mentioned, we held their gala at our BMW store last year. We had over 300 people at that.
Wow.
And I got to walk the catwalk with a kitten because we got the,
that is so cute.
So if you go a little deeper on our page, you'll see that video is really fun. Of course, I did it to the Lion King, the opening song of Lion King, Circle of Life, and held the cat up. Everybody cheered.
I follow you guys on Facebook, so I'll be on the lookout for that. And
it's any
other events. Yeah, because you guys just go all out. Whenever I went on your page, I was very, very impressed. Just every event looks like you guys put a lot of thought into it. And so I think I appreciated that as being, someone on the other end, being, like a guest. And I know your guests appreciate that as well. So
I've had a couple of vendors that follow us and they're like, hey, will you let us know when the next party is? We'll plan our planned visit around that time. So the folks from Reputation came out. We had a big 700-person event for our 50th anniversary of our BMW store 3 years ago. And they just happened to time their visit during that event. So they were able to come to our event and enjoy the event. So that was a lot of fun. And, I still hear about that from them, boy, that party was really fun, and so on. But yeah, it's very strategic. It's very thought out. We don't just throw money at a project or an idea. We're very thoughtful and strategic and smart about how we do it. And, some things have worked, some things haven't, and we learn and we adjust and we, hey, we learned from this one to do this way. So let's do it going forward, all these, and then we make each event better and better.
Yeah, I can tell that you guys definitely put a lot of thought into your events. I mean, it hats off to you and your team, because you guys are doing a fabulous job.
We appreciate that. Our guests tell us the same thing, so that makes us happy.
Yes. You guys give yourself a pat on the back and just, know that everyone is very impressed with it. So Dan, as we wrap up, I want to look forward. So between the EV transitions, hybrids, AI, and changing consumer habits, what do you think dealership leaders need to be preparing for right now that most probably aren't paying attention to right now?
Well, obviously everything is AI. You couldn't walk through the National Automobile Dealer Association convention in Las Vegas last year without somebody mentioning AI. AI water coolers. It's amazing. So I think AI is going to. I like to say AI is kind of an accelerant. If you're really good at something, AI can help you be much better, faster. Yeah. And if you're really bad at something, then AI is going to expose that, and it's going to exasperate your issues and your problems. Supply chain, we don't know. When the Ukraine war broke out, a lot of the wiring harnesses were built in Ukraine. So BMW and some of our other manufacturers had to scramble quickly to find other sources for those because they could no longer rely. And obviously that's the nervous system of a vehicle. So you can't go without it. And, we have potential, gas has come down in price, thankfully, over the last couple of weeks, but we don't know where that war is going to go. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's going to impact you either way. So it's interesting to see where the next disruption could be. And for us, it's just being light on our feet, control the things we can control and adjust and adapt to the things we can't. And, there was a book or a seminar that was talking about, it's not the strong that survive, it's the fast. And, and it's who can adapt quicker and minimize challenges and maximize opportunities. And sometimes you're doing that at the same time. But, you mentioned AI. So we're using AI as much as possible because that just accelerates things for us and makes things easier. I mean, even as something as simple as the description of the vehicles on your website, before you would see someone spend 5 to 10 minutes typing one out, checking for misspellings and all that. Well, now you can go into AI and say, here's a VIN number of a 2021 BMW 3 Series. Write a description of this vehicle based on the VIN. This is the price. Target audience is 21 to 29-year-old, first time buyer out of college. And then it comes up with, in 20 seconds, it comes up with this fantastic descriptor, and it's copy paste done, and so it allows that person to do a better job, a faster job, and get through to do the things that they really need to be doing, which is talking to customers and trying to, move deals forward.
Yeah.
I think AI is going to be a big thing. We don't know politically, when we talked about COVID, the other thing that kind of exacerbates some of those issues were all the vehicle mandates towards battery electric when the infrastructure wasn't in place yet. So we were kind of putting the cart before the horse, but it was an opportunity because so many manufacturers were able to retool because the factory was shut down. So, hey, let's go ahead and move this vehicle up a year and get this thing going and so on. And, we've seen some backlash to that and, to where battery electrics are still growing, but the fastest growing segment for us is plug-in hybrids because it's the best of both worlds. It's electric when you're in town, gas for everywhere else. Oh. And it's an interesting thing. And, I have a BMW X1. I'm like, man, I wish they had a plug-in hybrid in the year that I bought mine because I would have bought the plug-in hybrid because I only live 7 miles from work. So I'd be electric probably 90% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I've heard of hybrids, but I'm not too familiar with their functionality. I mean, now that you mention it's the best of both worlds, I could see myself driving one, especially since we're home a lot for the most part, and then, plug it in. But anytime else, just drive.
Yeah, it's been a learning curve for people. And, we have this to thank for it because, our cell phones, for the longest time, how many people did would forget to plug their phone in? They're always running on empty. Well, those are the people we probably don't want in an electric vehicle because they're going to forget to plug their car in. Although some of the manufacturers are working on robotic arms for your garage. And if you forget to plug your car in, you just go to the app and hit it, and the robotic arm will plug the car in for you.
No way.
And Porsche, Audi, and Volkswagen are working on, my phone right now is sitting on my mouse pad, which charges it. So that same technology is going to be on the floor of your garage. When you pull your car in, it starts charging through the wheels.
That's insane.
So there's a lot of fun stuff coming down the road like that.
Is that like a functionality that, like, who would install that?
Well, you'd need an electrician, and we've actually looked at during when battery electrics were really growing fast because of the government mandates and the $7,500 rebate and whatnot. We actually looked at hiring our own electrician.
Okay.
And that would go and do these installs. We found a vendor, third party, that could do it much easier and better and then do it for all of our stores at once. So we went that route. But yeah, you'd have to have an electrician because you're talking, some of these cars you want on a 240, which is what your, electric dryer or your electric range runs on. It's not as simple as, plugging it into a power strip. That'll work, but it might take 3 days to charge your vehicle.
That's a big thing. I mean,
it's a big thing.
Yeah,
and when you talk about, we have that coming down the pike, and that shift is still going to happen. They're talking about the small nuclear reactors that have been powering submarines and aircraft carriers for years, being available to run data centers and, add power to the grid, because that's a safe, proven technology. It's been around for 50 years. So that'll solve some of the transmission issues and the capacity issues. And then it's a matter of, we have neighborhoods in San Antonio that can't handle all the level 2 chargers that people want to install. So the electric companies are upgrading lines and wires, and it's going to take time and money to do all that. And I think, we've kind of put the cart before the horse, but now the industry is kind of right setting itself. And, there's 4 types of drivetrain, from gas, vehicles, which is, we call them, those are the ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines. Then you have your 75-25, where it's 75% gas up to 25% electric. Those are your hybrids that don't plug in. Think of the Toyota Prius that's been out for 25 years now. And then you have your plug-in hybrids, which are 50-50 or sometimes, 75-25 electric versus gas. Those are ones you plug in every night and you get 80 to 120 miles of range on those. And then you have your full battery electrics, which, right now, 300 mile range is kind of the holy grail, but now there's vehicles coming that are 400, 425, 450, and that's going to expand the horizons, plus all the new technologies in the battery electrics, because that's where all the research and development has been. So all the cool stuff, the wraparound displays and the full, windshield display, it's all in the electrics, so that's kind of where the cool stuff is.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Not to mention flying cars, self-driving cars, all that is all next 5-10 years. It's crazy.
That's going to be a thing, flying cars. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know. It's like something where I dream of in my dreams. Oh, there's a flying car.
Think of a drone that can carry 4 people and 1,200 pounds. That's electric and has a range of 125 to 150 miles. And so that's kind of where things are going. There's several models that are in flight testing, believe it or not. Self-driving cars, we have level 3 self-driving cars. The level 4 is totally anonymous. On my way home, I pass at least 4 or 5 Waymos, because the Waymo charging station is on my way home, and I see driverless cars going by all the time.
I have seen those before. Those are pretty cool. I've always, I don't know, I have mixed feelings. I've wanted to get into one, and then I've been scared to get into one at the same time.
Well, this funny story. I was sitting at a stoplight and there was one behind me, and we were in the right lane. There was a left lane, which is kind of a left turn lane. And this bus was making a right towards us. Well, buses turn wide. And since there was nobody in that lane, the bus driver actually crossed the double yellow line to be able to make a smoother turn. Yeah. The Waymo slammed into reverse and honked the horn for a good 15 seconds. I was like, oh, they're going to get a dirty look. And I looked in the mirror and there was nobody in the car, no passenger, nobody driving, but the car honked to let the bus driver know you're too close. And it actually backed up. I was just like, man, the Waymo got some attitude.
It does. That's very shocking. I don't think I've ever heard of a driverless car having an attitude like that.
Having mild road rage. It was interesting.
Right. Wow. So lots of new things coming up in the next 5 to 10 years in the automotive industry.
Definitely.
We all should prepare ourselves. So my final question, Dan, is if you could give one piece of advice to a future dealership leader entering the industry today, what would it be?
I would say the automotive industry or automotive business isn't about vehicles. It's about relationships. And you have to decide early on what kind of dealership you're going to be. Are you going to be a one and done where you try to take advantage of the situation, whatever it may be, and you hope to never see that person again? Or do you want to see that person again in 2 years when they're ready to trade in or they're ready to buy a vehicle for their significant other or whatnot? We choose to be the type of dealership we want a lifelong, we want to provide them service and amenities and fun things to do and a great place to do it in. And, with great associates who are here year after year after year because they love what they do. And that way it makes our job easier. And that's how we get true sustainable growth. And it actually costs less to retain a customer than it is to go find a new one. So I would say focus on retention, focus on the experience. It's not about the car. I mean, frankly, we have some of the greatest cars in the world, but to be honest, there's a lot of great cars out there, and I wouldn't begrudge anybody if they bought something that we didn't sell because it fit their specific need. I would rather them be happy. That's why we sell used cars from all the brands, because they may not want a used BMW, they want to use Mercedes or Lexus or whatever the case may be, and we have those, so. But I would say just do things the right way. It'll never come back to haunt you, and it'll make CSI easier. It'll make reviews easier. It'll make retention easier. It'll make getting new customers. It'll make referrals easier. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a righteous circle. It just keeps growing and growing and growing if you do it the right way. There's a lot of shortcuts. There's a lot of easier way. Like during COVID, when the vehicles were short supply and people were selling cars for $5, $10, $15,000 over MSRP, they had like market adjusted pricing. We didn't do that. And we probably lost out on some gross profits but we made a decision we would do the right thing. And we remind people 4 or 5 years later, remember during COVID, we didn't sell vehicles over MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we sold a lot of vehicles at MSRP because the demand was there, but that rightly adjusted itself, and we sell very few cars at MSRP now, because it's adjusted.
What a fabulous and important reminder and point, that building relationships is important than, a dollar essentially. And I truly appreciate you being so honest and open about that. So, a lot of companies aren't.
Take care of your associates. They'll take care of your guests. Your guests will take care of the bank account. I hate to make it that simple, but it truly is that simple. Do the right thing.
Yeah, very simple. Well, Dan, I seriously appreciate you taking the time to come on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. This is exactly the kind of conversation that we're trying to create with Highway and Harbor. There's a huge gap between what the public sees and what operators are actually navigating behind the scenes, and hearing your perspective on how Principle Automotive has adapted over the last 2 decades is genuinely valuable. So thank you so much for coming on. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to Highway and Harbor. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We've got a lot more conversations coming with incredible people across the automotive, marine, RV, and outdoor industries. We will see you in the next one.
Take care.